All right, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Please, sorry for the delay. We had some technical issues with the link. So you're all welcome to this section. So today we'll be having a market roundup, and an alumni of SFC will be taking us. An alumnus of SFC will be taking us right away. In person of Yinka Ademuwago. So you're welcome. So you can have the floor, Yinka.
Okay, Kel. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can all hear you.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So I believe I don't need to switch on my video.
No, you don't.
There's no need.
Oh, okay, to see what's the bandwidth. Okay, great. Essentially, as Kele has, I don't know his full name, but I know I see Kele, and I've been getting his emails. I'm glad to be here this evening. Yeah, my name is Inka Demwogun. I work as an investment research analyst with United Capital PLC. I don't know, most of you might not know United Capital anyway. So, um, but for you that are in Student Finance Club, then those are companies you need to know, like investment banking companies in Nigeria. So the best way I do explain to people who United Capital is to think about it this way. It's just like the investment banking arm of UBA. So that's the way to think about the name United Capital. So there are other investment banking arms in Nigeria here. I believe by now you should know most of them, or the top 10 at least, the likes of Stanbic, Renka, Stanchart, and the likes, or AfriInvest and the likes. So those are places you are probably going to be eyeing when you leave school. But again, what I've been called for today is to take you guys on how to do a market update. For some of you that are aware, probably we've encountered once or twice via Edu Bridge. If you attended Edu Bridge at any point in time, in recent years, I do also take the market update, or what you call the market roundup for EduBridge, which is always an exciting part of the what was it called, the program for EduBridge. So I do take it for the graduate, undergraduate, and the experienced class. So because that's what I do all my life. Basically, I follow the markets. I essentially just follow the markets. Because as a research analyst, you need to be aware of what is happening day by day. Everything that the CBN is doing, what's the implication, those are the ways to think about it. Hope you guys can hear me and I'm not talking to myself.
Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear
Okay.
you.
Great. I just need to be checking from time to time to be sure because of network. So again, as I was saying, that's like an overview of what I'm here to do. I'm here to do in a normal class, or in a normal class where I take market update, I try to engage people and to hear from them. So I'm going to be doing that today. I'm going to be hearing from you. I know you guys are still students. Most of you probably part 4, part 3, or part 2, or even part 1. So which is good. It is good because you prepare ahead. While I was in school, I know probably you've met, I don't know if Ife has been on this call at some point, or he's still coming on this call, where he was like one of the brain behind SFC to the point where he is today. I was just like a supporting striker in that particular regards. So then when we're in school, we try to, track the market. Let's even know what's going on outside of academics, let's know what's going on. Let's reorganize boot camp, do all of those things. And we try to be in touch with what is going on in the market. And that really, really helped us. That really, really helped us when we came out of the university. For me, it was like an advantage. So immediately I got out of the university, I was able to get back 2 offers with an investment house, one with AfriInvest and the other with United Capital, where I ended up working with, where I ended up accepting the offer. So I did my pre-NYC with them, then my NYC, and now my full time. So again, and a lot of my friends like that too. The same for Ife. He went ahead to even do Bank of America. We had AY, Ayo, people like that who ended up going to AfroInvest and the likes. So, and that has always been the trajectory or the story for SFC people. SFC is like the route to entering into preparing you ahead for what is to come. It just makes your journey easier in that sense. So market update is a very important skill. Like I tell everybody in my class, is a very, very important skill. Now, following the market rather is a very important skill that you need to have as an investment analyst. Now, for those of you that are just joining, I know it's an induction, so most of you are just joining anyway. So you would know as time goes on that there are different parts of finance. There is a what was it called, investment banking. There is securities trading, or what you call the brokerage. There's asset management. There is venture capital. There's private equity. There's all of these. Those are different parts of finance. Numerous parts of this finance industry. Again, wherever you find yourself, be it any of these divisions, treasury, wherever you find yourself, it's a skill that would stand you out. Today, yeah, I'm still an analyst, at least probably because of the knowledge I have. I've been opportune to sit down in places I'm not supposed to be in, found at my age, like at a very, very young age. So I've sit down in board meetings, I sat down in board meetings, Tony Elumulu's board meetings and the likes. Those are places that ordinarily MDs and CEOs would always sit down. I've sat down with CEOs of all the CEOs of African CEOs of UBA in a meeting with Tony Elumulu. So that's what gave me that edge, or what gave me that fast pace, or in that sense, was my ability to be able to make what you call, you do this thing in accounting. What's the definition of accounting? You say to make informed decision. Am I correct? Right? You say something to make informed decision. For those that did accounting in the room, help me. Should be
Yes,
to
yes,
informed decisions, right? Exactly.
yes.
So it's the same thing that applies here. So you need to follow the market to be able to make informed decisions, because at that level, at the board level, at the chairman level, what they are doing every day is strategic. It is decision making. They are making decisions. So they need people that can help them see clearly. So that's where you come in. That's where that skill is a very, very important skill you need to have. You need to inculcate it, and the earlier you start, the better. To be honest, the earlier you start, the better, because that was what gave me advantage. Now, what I've noticed for most people is, oh, you wait till you graduate and you start to track the market. It does not work that way. You can't work the magic. So what has happened in the last 1 year, you can't put it in your head within a night to your interview. But if you've been inculcating that culture before now, while you are still in school, or even during your holiday and all of that, you're just following, keeping tabs with what is going on in the market, then you become an advantage, because as it is happening, you're aware. So by the time you get to the interview and they're asking you a question on something that you're aware of already, you can say a lot. Or even if you've forgotten, probably you're not preparing some days to your interview, it will just be like you're just trying to remember what happened then. There are two different things than trying to pack things in your head. So again, I'm trying to what's it called, whet your appetite to tell you that it's actually a very important skill to have. It's a must-have skill, not even a very important. It's a must-have skills that you need to build for yourself from now. From now, you need to build them. Then the question then is, the question I would get at this point would be like, oh, how do I now track the market? For some of you, you're doing it already. Right? For some, you don't even know how to. That's my role. That's my role here today. Like, my role here today is not to teach you the normal market update that I'll teach you in an EduRich class. In an EduRich class, or in my normal class where I'm taking a market roundup or update, I will tell you to tell me a sample of news you follow during the week, right? Then you list it out. Then I would show you or share with you my opinions, and listening to your own opinions. We try to give opinions on things. So essentially, the objective of a class like this is to be able to make informed decision, to be able to look at the news and think about the implication. What's the implication for the business? What's the implication for Nigerian economy? What's the implication? So when you read the news, you're not just reading the news for reading sake. You are reading it with the mindset that there is an implication for the business I'm working for. What's the implication? So you're trying to arrive at that implication. What's the implication for my so that's essentially that. You can see how important this skill is. So how do you now do follow up with the market? While I was in school, I could still remember, it's difficult merging tracking the market with schoolwork. You get assignments, you prepare for tests, and you can be crazy. You prepare for tests, you prepare for impromptu and all of those things. You have to go to class, you're tired, you get home, you need to watch movies, or sometimes for those of you that are hustlers that also do ICANN, you have to prepare for ICANN, ACC, and the likes. Of for those of you that are already doing CIS, a lot of engagement for OU students is a lot. And I could tell you I was there too. A lot of my friends too were there. We've gone through that process already. And we can tell you for free that it's actually possible to also try to include tracking the market into your schedule. Now, it's not that difficult. The problem is always, how do I do it? Now, another problem that people would have on a typical what was it called? A typical starter. Another problem they will have is, I read these news, but I really do not even understand it. So that's the objective of SFC itself. SFC is like the platform where you read that news, then you come together, you are people of like minds, you have the same objective, come together, then you try to process that information. You can ask questions, probably you have a WhatsApp page, post the news on the WhatsApp page and seek people's suggestion, then this thing is all about perspective. And the funny thing about these things are there is no one formula to it. There is no one formula to it. I'm an accounting graduate, by the way, and in the role investment research, you would normally find what's it called economics graduate there. Like economics graduates are the one that do a lot of economics research work. But I was able to actually pivot from being an accounting student who had done what was it called ICANN and all of those, and I still was able to adapt to the environment where I would have to be doing a lot of macros, a lot of macroeconomic analysis, which is my life as of today. GDP, inflation, all of those things, processing those data and making informed decisions out of them, writing reports out of them, doing content analysis and all of those. So that's the skill that are very, 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 very important. Now, the point, not to lose track of what I was saying, how do you track the market? How do you track the market? Now, as a student, you have a phone, you have devices, we all browse the net. For those that are in, what was it called? School, you have Interco, right? Is there still Interco? Because it's been a while.
Yes, they still in
There's still,
Teco.
there's still Interco. Great. So Interco back then, we use Interco is cheap internet back then. You can easily access the web. I think it's 100 naira. You buy a card, and for a day you can actually access the internet. So there's no excuse for not accessing the internet back in school. So the point then is, what are you using the internet for? So most of us, we watch comedies, we watch video. It's not bad. I watch a lot of movies. I was even known for what was it called? There was a point I watched. What was it called? The record I held today back then in OWL. I was an OWL. What was it called? I stayed in OWL from part 2 to part 4. Basically, I used to hold the record in block 6 of OWL. I watched up to 100 movies in a month. Now, this is not seasonal movies. I'm talking about movie, like full movie, like up to 100 in a month. Like, I was just waking up and sleeping, and that was what I was doing. So I did all of that, right? So I know that there are a lot of people that want to enjoy life, like myself too. So you can do that. Though when I did this, it was when probably by that time I was already done with ICANN. I was in about 4, 5 a year already. I'm already thinking about outside world and all of those. So at that point, I could actually relax and take a break and enjoy my life for a little, because for over 4 years I was unable to enjoy my life because of all of those exams and the like. So I understand all of this. So one thing you need to do while tracking the market, there are different ways. You can use your WhatsApp. The funny thing is you can even use WhatsApp. Now, there are different news agencies. I don't know if you are taking notes. I would, at this point, you need to take notes. So there are different news agencies. Probably I'll just keep reiterating that news agency for another 1 minute for those of you that want to pick a pen and a paper. So yeah, I'll just keep saying this. I'm delaying intentionally for like a minute. I have time in front of me. So by the time it's a minute, I'll move on. So you can pick a pen or a paper to take notes, or you can also take notes on your phone for those that use Notepad already. So yeah, I'm still waiting. It's not a 1 minute. So I'm giving you time to pick your pen or your paper so you can take notes, because this is like the important part of this discussion. Everything I've said before now is just to whet your appetite. But now is the time to now talk about how do you do it? How do you take that step? How do you track the market? What is the best way or the best formula? The funny thing is there's no one way to doing it. Now I'm moving on. It's 1 minute already. Now there's no one way to doing this. There's no one formula. For me, I used to back then, I think I used to go to websites. Now I go to website like for Nigerian news, for Nigerian economic news, I follow the likes of ProShare, PROSHARE, Pro, like professional in terms of ProShare. ProShare.ng is a website. They share business news, or they are a business news agency. So I go to ProShare.ng back then I read the news. They have what they call, for those that will be using ProShare, they have what they call, or for those of you that are already using them, they have what they call all in 1 minute news. All in 1 minute news. So if you Google ProShare all in 1 minute news, that means what you're going to find there is a summary of news that have taken place. Like today now, there will be all in 1 minute news as of today. So that means they will summarize all the news that have taken place the whole of today in just one, what's it called? One page. Do you get? And there'll be links to read more. Do you get? So they summarize all the news that have taken place, key news that have taken place today, and you can read more on them. So I use that particular platform. I didn't even go to ProShare home or homepage or whatever. I just use ProShare all in 1 minute news. So it was very interesting. I found it very, very interesting at the start. But as you grow, you desire more. And for those, I said, for some of you, you read this news and you didn't even understand. Like, I didn't even understand what they're saying. Yeah, that's what SFC is. But there's also the part where you need to play, like for yourself, in terms of you need to be hungry. That's the critical thing. See, to succeed in this field that you are setting to entering, to succeed, you need hunger. You need hunger. You need hunger. I could remember back then, we used to have Femi Lawal, I used to have Damilola, Soji, and the likes. Those people would not let me rest. They would ask me question, and I would direct them, oh, this is where to go, this is where to go, this is where to go, as much as I can. Because of my work, I may not be able to have that much time to respond, but I try to point them to the right direction, probably a VN at my convenience, probably on the weekend, I respond by VN to them on WhatsApp. So you have to be hungry. It is the hunger that matters, to be honest. You need to be hunger for that knowledge. You need to have that hunger within you. You need to awaken that hunger within yourself for that knowledge. That's the starting point. So nobody knows it all from the beginning. I didn't know all what I know as I today when I was in school, but I was hungry for that knowledge. While I was in school, I was calling people, I was chatting people, I was asking questions, I was Googling, like everything I can do, watching YouTube videos, everything I could lay my hands on to actually understand how the market work. Like we did, I could remember back then we did our first boot camp and second boot camp, I and Ife and the likes. Most of what we read to teach our fellow members when we're starting out were self-taught. They were self-taught. Like it was the hunger within us that led us to go and learn them on our own. Then now we use what we've learned about the market practically. Now this practical session, whatever you're doing in SFC is practical. It's not theory. Yeah, forget theory. It's practical. Theory you will do in class, you can do that one in class. But practically, what do you need to do on the job? What will help you on the job? And this is one of those things that will help you on the job. When you get to an interview room, these are questions that they will ask you, oh, what's the implication of this particular policy that the CBN just did? If you're not aware about the policy, how do you even want to know the implication? Do you get? So, but by the time you're already tracking the market and they ask you something that you guys have even discussed in SFC, man, you will kill them. You give them like 4 or 5 points. I've been in that situation. My African University interview, they asked me a question and I was like, they had to tell me to stop, like calm down, just stop. They were the one telling me to stop that. No, you know it. Do you get? So that's the point you need to be able to get to. Like you need to be able to get to the point where even after in your interview room, they're already telling you congratulations. Because they can't just wait to have you. Because if you at this young age, you did well in school, you graduated with a good grade, you have this much knowledge about what is going on practically, that means you are already set to grow. You're already on the right path. So they can't wait to have you. They will be congratulating right there and there. They don't even need you to go before they send you that mail. So those were situations that most of us find ourselves, or we find ourselves today when we go through this platform. So one thing is I use ProShare, ProShare.ng, all in 1 minute. Then there's Nairametrics. Now, this is the one I recommend to most people. I found this out very late. I think ProShare came out before Nairametrics. Yeah, now I remember. When I was in school, ProShare was like the major one. Then it was later on Nairametrics came on board. But by then, I've already learned most of what I need to learn the hard way. And the hard way is by calling people or what's it called? Chatting people up and also Googling and watching YouTube. That's like the hard way to learn these things. But the simple way is actually to not go too far, to stay within the news and learn what you need to learn. Now, why I like Nairametrics and I recommend it for starters. Nairametrics, I recommend it for starters. For those that are just starting out, probably past one students that are just starting, that just want to learn, that are just starting out, they don't even know much about, probably, there are some things, there are some courses you will do at part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5, for those that are probably in medicine and the likes. Courses you're still going to do, but you don't have an understanding of as at this point in time. So when you're reading the news, it might not make sense to you. But the point is, for Nairametrics, why I like it is because they break down their news. So when they use technical terms, bullish, bearish, what's it called? There's so many technical terms they can use, B to cover and the likes. When they use technical terms such as these, financial, what's it called, repression. These financial repression, what's it called, recession, technical recessions. When they use technical words like this, they would always explain. So you don't need to go outside of the article to read about it. Are you with me? Hope I'm not speaking to myself.
No, we can hear you.
Oh, great. So they don't need to go outside of, they don't need to go outside of that particular news article to understand what is being communicated. So you don't need to, once you open a Nairametric news, once you open their news, you are already, like every technical word there, they will put it in italics, they will explain it in italics, and they will explain it in an easy manner. So that is why it's like a good platform to start off, right? So Nairametrics is another good platform. So I wouldn't want to go outside of these two because of, I told you when I started out with these two. But for some of you, I said you can use WhatsApp, you can even use your Twitter. For me now, I don't use all these websites that I'm mentioning. I don't use them anymore. Because let's say I've learned to, there's a stage you get to that you grow beyond some of these things. So I can't even remember the last time I visited some of those websites. So basically what I use today is Twitter. I didn't use WhatsApp. What I use today is Twitter. How do I use my Twitter? For those of you that know how to use Twitter very well, I even had to, back then in school, I created a separate Twitter account. I think that was in my past 4 thereabouts. I created a separate Twitter account. I used to have 2 Twitter accounts. One is for following people like my friends, family, and the likes and the people. Then the other was for financial news, like following people that I know have insights, people that I know that what they tweet is always something about economy, following news agency like Bloomberg, like Reuters, like ProShare, for example, like Nairametrics, and the likes, like following people like that, Big Jolly. And over time, the funny thing is, over time, that second Twitter account that I created for news has now become my main Twitter account. The one I used to follow people, I can't even remember the password anymore because I don't even log in there anymore. Because my main Twitter account now today is now the one where I used to follow news. It has now become my official Twitter account. So that was how it started. It started back then in school. where I was just hungry to learn more, because after reading Proshi, after reading Nairametrics, there's a stage you get to that you now yearn for more again. Like, I need more than this. So that's what led me to that. Okay, I started following news agencies, Bloomberg, Reuters, and Goldman, Bank of America, any news I can name a hand on. I was just, any news producing or research producing firm, I was just following them. So as to whenever I open my timeline, if I open my timeline for you now, all you just see is news. You can't see hello, Shadi, or something, any personal kind of news. It is more about economic news. So I'm not saying this is like, again, I'm not saying that's the way for you. Everybody at their own different stage. So some people, they are already doing metrics, they're already doing ProShare at this point in time. So what is the next level they need to unlock? Probably Twitter level is the what they need to unlock. And you get so many information. And one of the funny thing about Twitter is that it's like, for those of you that are following what's going on in the global economy, Trump is like the major influencer on Twitter today. Like, he makes policies and announces it on Twitter. So, and that is the same way news agencies, news work now again today. News drop first on Twitter. Funny enough, they drop first. Primary source of information now is almost Twitter. If President Buhari wants to implement something, the first place you get it from is his Twitter handle. So if you want to check, somebody told you, President Buhari did something. All you need to do is to go to the official Twitter handle of President Buhari or the official Twitter handle of the Presidency of Nigeria. Either of those two, you should find it there. Because that's the first place they would always publish it. In addition to Facebook, anyway. I can't even remember the last time I opened Facebook, so I don't even know. I wouldn't recommend using Facebook. For Twitter, I found it very useful. I found it very easy. Then I said you can also use, what's it called, WhatsApp, by subscribing. Most news agencies today, like Nairametrics, like ProShare, like Bloomberg are like, those ones are international news agencies. Reuters, Reuters, Reuters. They are international news agencies. Those ones, CNBC, those are international news agencies. Those ones, you can, once you Google, just Google Bloomberg WhatsApp news. So what that means is, there's this thing they do these days. I don't know if you guys are aware. There's this thing they do these days. You just send stats to something. They'll say send stats to so number. So once you send stats to that number, you start to get their news every day. So they'll be sending their news directly to you via their WhatsApp channel. So, but you can't reply, you can't do anything, you just be receiving, you get. So they'll be sending the news directly to your WhatsApp. And again, this is also good for, why I'm talking about the WhatsApp platform is, for some of us at, school is not easy too. There are sometimes that there's no money for intercode, there's no free password. I don't know if you will still get free password anyway. There's no free password, there's no money for intercode, and there's no internet. So probably you now go and do WhatsApp subscription. I don't even know if that thing still exists. Do they still do WhatsApp subscription? Like, the data is only for WhatsApp, and
it's still existing.
It's still existing. Great. So some of us will do that. I also did that at some point in school when funding was dry. You have to, man has to survive, and WhatsApp is like one of the major platforms you need to be on to communicate with people. So you do WhatsApp. So that's why this particular WhatsApp channel might be better for you if that is what you do. So you can always subscribe, then you get it by WhatsApp. So even when you don't have the internet to access other websites, you can always access it directly on your WhatsApp. So that's why I'm even talking about WhatsApp one. The other way, I know this one is the worst way for students. So I wouldn't even dwell too much on it. I only teach this one when I'm talking about, probably I'm talking to more of graduate people or experienced class. Now, this is the worst one that I know for your stage. You probably would not enjoy it. That one is the emails. I know as students, we really check our emails because there's nothing we are really expecting, especially unless when you're now in part 4, part 3, you are applying for internship, or you're expecting responses and all of the likes. But man, as a starter, probably part 1 and all of those things, emails might not be. I don't know if the conversation have changed due to COVID now, and probably your lectures and assignments are now being sent via email. But when we're in school, I can't even remember. I think there was only one assignment I sent via email. I'm not even sure if I ever sent an assignment by email. But okay, there was an assignment we sent by email. It was an email that OU created for us back then. One email that I can't even remember. So they just to test the email, they asked us to send an assignment, and that was it. And that was the end of that email. So I wouldn't recommend this one. But again, it's just for you to be aware of. then that one is probably you go on Bloomberg, you go on ProShare, you go on Nairametrics, you go on, because you can't be visiting their website all the time. So, for us working class, we don't have time to be going to website and be reading and sit down on the website all day. What you can do is just subscribe to their mailing list subscription. You see at the bottom, most times always at the bottom of the website. You scroll down to the bottom of the website, you see a place where they'll tell you to input your email. You input your email, then you click subscribe. So going forward, they'll be sending their what we call roundup, that is the summary of all the event that took place. They'll be sending it to you by mails. But I know most of us don't check email. So for you, I would say stick to probably websites or WhatsApp at this stage. Now, again, I know it's not easy. This is the last, like the major key thing or the key thing I need to emphasize. I know it's not easy, to be honest with you. I know it's not easy, but the hunger, you need that hunger. You need that hunger. My joy, our own happiness as alumnus is to hear that people from SFC are bagging internship with Bank of America, Goldman. That's our own joy. When we hear other schools are like students from other schools are bagging it, it's not really our joy. And these are students that we probably also taught, probably by EduBridge or by one other platform or the other. We probably taught them, but they were not OU students. Yeah, it's our joy that, oh, these are students we taught and they are bagging this thing. But it will be more joyous for us once we hear that, oh, the person is an OU student. And even better when we now hear that the person is an SFC alumnus. Oh man, that's like the, what's it called, door opening name. Once you just introduce yourself and say SFC, that's all. Like immediately Kel chatted me up. Like I was like, he said SFC, and I was like, forget, I'm here already, because this is where we started from. This is where we started from, and this is our own way of hastening your own progress too. So that this is one of the best platforms you can have in school. To be honest, it's one of the best. And why is it the best? Why am I saying it's one of the best or the best, even on campus? Is because the focus is not on theory, it's on practical. It's on practical. And again, I know that when it comes to practical, remember I told you that, yeah, the focus was on practical. It was fellow students like yourself that was teaching the practical. My friend, we had people that were students that we were teaching those things, even though we were also fellow students like everyone. But the hunger in us wouldn't let us rest, because we were trying to be ahead of the curve. We're already thinking as a part 2, part 3, how do we make use of these things? How do we develop our financial modeling skill? How do we sharpen it up? I don't know if you understand. Imagine yourself graduating with, say, first class or even second class, and you have financial modeling skill, you have PowerPoint skill, you have Excel skill, you have knowledge of what's going on in the market. If you're a recruiter, you too think about it. You are a recruiter, you would not hesitate. You'll be so, like, because you make the life of the company easier. They're not going to spend too much to train you anymore, because you've done so well to train yourself. That's why people that have these skills never, I'm telling you, never do they struggle when they come out of school. Never. See, you can even graduate with bad grade and have good, all of these, working skills, and you will get a good job. But I'm not encouraging you to graduate the bad grade to say, okay, let me just focus on this. I'm just saying, try to balance everything out in such a way that your focus is not lost. Like, as you're focusing on your academics, also put one eye on the practice, what's going on in outside world. And again, when I was taught in school, when we were sitting down in class, so this is how hunger drives us. Again, this is how hunger drives us. When we're taught in school, they teach us things. Oh, this is how you do this thing. We go ahead. Yes, we understand that this is how they do it, or this is how they've taught us. How do they do it outside, practically? Do you get? We go ahead to find out how that thing is done practically. So we don't just sit down. So they can teach you financial modeling in your school and say on paper, and be drawing it on the board and be putting, that's not financial modeling. Financial modeling is hands-on. You have to carry laptop, open Excel, start to make assumptions, do projections, collect historicals, do valuations, and all of those things. But again, there is the balance between theory and practice. Now, here is the balance. I'm not saying school is irrelevant. School has never been irrelevant. Never, never. If anybody tell you school is a scam, tell them, say they're the one that don't know what they're doing. School is not a scam. I'm not supposed to be saying this, but school is not a scam. Now, I will tell you why. Now, if you read those financial news, remember you say you don't understand, you don't do this. The only reason you understand some of those concepts is because probably you've done them in economics or you've done them in accounting, you've done them in all those things. But the only thing is that they taught you theoretically. But by reading that news, you can now see how it is being applied. Like in school, even from secondary school, they taught us GDP. They taught us recession, boom, what was it called, business cycle and all of those things. They taught us from secondary school for those that did commercial courses. They taught us already all these things, and we're still going to do them again when we get to university. We still did it. And when we get out of out of university and we're working, we are still dealing with it. Yesterday, the NBS released Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, National Bureau of Statistics, released the GDP report, where growth, the GDP contracted by about 6.1% year on year in Q2 2020. Now, these are technical words I've just mentioned. For somebody that as I just said this now, somebody is wondering what's Q2. Some people are wondering, and some people they already know it, what Q2 is. Q2 is second quarter of the year 2020. When year Q2 2020, second quarter of 2020, H1 2020, half year, that's the half of 2020, H2 2020, the second half of 2020. You can see these are technical balance in the finance environment. But you won't know all these things without you reading. You will not see these things probably in your notebook or in your textbooks. But you will see them while reading the news. That's the difference. You hear recession, you hear growth, there's quarter on quarter, there's year on year. What's the difference between the two? You might not even know when you do throughout your stay in school. They did not teach us anything year on year, quarter on quarter in school. Week on week, they did not teach us what the meaning is. There are different measures of change. Measure of change can be week on week, can be year on year, can be month on month, can be day on day. Those are different measures of change. That is, if I want to measure what is the market, how is the market performing today, week on week, it is simply today, which is a Tuesday, against last week Tuesday. The position as at last week Tuesday. If I say year on year, it means the position this year against the one of last year, this same time last year. So whatever it is as at August 2020 against whatever it is as at August 2019, that's year on year, 2 different years. Quarter on quarter, 2 different quarters in probably the same year, or 2 most recent quarter, for example. If you're in Q2, it means Q2 against Q1. If you're in Q1, it means Q1 against Q4. Q4 being 4th quarter of the year. There are only 4 quarters in the year. So the last 2 most recent quarters, do you get? So these are different measures of change too. Hope you guys are with me.
Yes,
Yes,
we
we are.
are. Yes,
Yes,
we are.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So essentially, these things are not taught. These things are not taught in class. But by the fact that you're reading the news, you're coming across them and you're checking them out. One again, okay, the bits that I've not talked about. The last bit I've not talked about is the fact that there are some you are going to come across and probably you read the news, you don't even understand. You read Google, you don't even understand. You watch YouTube, you don't even understand. There are some like that. But the funny thing about those things like that, the funny thing about them is there is somebody within your network, that is within SFC, that understands it. So that's the point of SFC. That's the point of the community. That's why you need to speak up when you don't understand things. You'll be surprised that somebody knows that thing that you are finding so difficult to understand. There are so many situations that there are things I don't even understand. And I'll be like, I've read Google, I've watched YouTube video, I've done everything, I've called. And the funny thing is, my friend, if he understands it, and I'm like, probably I never even talk. And one day we're just talking, and I just mentioned it, like, is it not that thing that this? And I'm like, oh, interesting. I never knew. and the vice versa too. So that's the point of the community itself. The community is to hasten your growth, to hasten the process of your growth. That's why we as alumni, we're here to provide support in whichever way we can. And we're giving back by saying these are the ways we feel you can even do it better. So again, there's Investopedia, one of the major, that's the thing I wanted to say, one of the major websites, for those of you that are taking notes, one of the major websites you should find interesting as a finance person while starting out. I was going down one too, even today, I can't remember the last time I checked Investopedia. But I'm telling you, at the stage of growth where you're just growing, Investopedia should be one of your second friend. Investopedia should be like once you open your Google Chrome or your Opera Mini or whichever website web browser you're using, that should be like the first thing they will recommend for you, Investopedia, because that should be like the next place you always go to, aside from all of these news agencies. Because Investopedia is like the Wikipedia of finance. That's the way to think about it. It's like the Wikipedia of finance. So they break things down better. It really helped me while I was starting. So when I don't understand, like this week on Wiki on here and all of those things, when I came across it on a particular news, I was like, which one is all this one again? Week on Wiki on here, quarter and quarter. I didn't understand all this one. And I was trying to understand it. I watched video, they did it on Excel, they did how they calculate it. Sincerely, I saw it, I could understand how but I couldn't get the sense behind it. Though I just explain it to you simply, you will fun. It's funny that there are some things that are so simple that are hard to grab. And I watched YouTube video, did everything, but I didn't understand. But Investopedia, I just checked and I saw the example they gave. It was so straight
Oh,
and precise.
good evening.
Hello?
Sorry, that was a mistake.
Okay. So it was so smooth and I got it easily. And there's this joy that comes with understanding something that you've been struggling with. I know a lot of you would have experienced it. There are some things that probably are reading for exam and you don't understand. Probably one day you now want to sleep. It happens to me a lot. You now go and sleep like, oh, Alaye ló ń gba BSc. Pardon my Yoruba. Oh, you go to your bed and sleep. The next morning, or maybe even in the middle of the night, you now woke up. Now say, let me even check that thing. And you check within 3-5 minutes, you got it. And you're like, wow. You'll be happy. You just feel happy. You feel like you have fulfilled your purpose in life that day. Because suddenly, that thing that was seeming so difficult to understand, somehow, you just understood it. So that's the same way. That's the point of hunger. When I say be hungry. Because if you're not hungry, you won't go back to eat when you wake up. You will just move on with your life. But the hunger inside you would not allow you sit down and not learn that thing. If there are things that I love about the sets that have gone after that came in to SFC after we left was the fact that I could see the hunger. I could tell they were hungry. They were hungry. They were hungry. Like they were always disturbing, even though my own work will not allow me to always have time. Probably first work too, the same thing will not allow you to have time. And a lot of people too in the industry, but they will always disturb us. And the funny thing that you don't know is with the alumni, we talk. We know. Do you get? We know. We know each other. We know we chat, we talk everything. So we know we know the side that are disturbing. Like these ones they are very hungry to know these things. And it's only those that are hungry that you will see people would help. They will raise up to help for them. I can remember during studies, for those of you for those of you that are probably in your final year or third year, you should know them, Soji or Laide and the likes. They came second in CFA Research Challenge. We brought them to Lagos by force by fire. We brought them to Lagos. We did series of meetings with them, trained them, drill them on what to do. And at the end of the day, by God's grace, they came out second in that competition for the first time for the research challenge. So that's our own joy. That's our own joy. When we see you succeed in those roles, we see you bag roles like Bank of America, because these are things that will help you in your Bank of America interview. For those of you that will be doing interviews for Bank of America, they'll be asking you things like, oh, tell me about a recent deal that you've tracked. But imagine you've never even tracked anything all your life, and you're about to prepare for Bank of America interview. You're not going to be cramming the deal that you never know the history. They will now be asking you different questions on that deal, and you will now flop. But if you're already aware, as of today, you're already tracking the market and you know what is going on, you tell them about a deal that just happened. This person just raised a bond recently, or something in America. There was Ants Corporation, Ants Group of Alibaba affiliate is trying to do IPO. The valuation is put. Imagine you're giving the they are like, no, you know what you're saying, you know your substance, and they will test you for something else. Valuation, SFC has already prepared you for valuation. They go to valuation, you're there. They go to modeling, you're there. They go to PowerPoint, you're there. How will they give you offer? They will give you. So that's the point. Again, that's our own joy to see you succeed in all this perspective. Anyway, I think I have like 9 minutes left. So again, if there's any question, I've been able, I think majorly what I try to do is, because this is not the way I take my typical class, as I said from the onset, I just try to whet our appetite and show us ways we can actually develop this skill, and to also let us know how important it is to dedicate time to do this thing, even though it might look as unnecessary at the moment, but it's like an investment. Today, you might not be making money, but in the next 1 year or 2 years when you graduate, you see the impact or the effect. When I start my job, when I started working on the job, the first thing my guy would ask me is, how do you know this thing? How do you know? The first report I wrote, he gave me excellence. If you see the way I was so elated, because I felt joy, because these are things that I know already. So it's part of me already. So you're telling me to write about what was it called? Electric vehicle. Electric vehicle. Are you whining me? Electric vehicle that I've read about when I was in school. I've read articles upon articles upon articles upon articles. I just put my thoughts together in a page and I shared it with him. I was like, wow, how do you know to write all of this? That I didn't even know this one. I didn't even know this one. I'm like, I've read a lot about the industry, because those are things that were booming at that point in time when we were graduating. So I was always on the news and catching new information that were happening in that space. So I was quite aware. So the same way, you want to be that person. You want to be that kind of person. And there are so many testimonies of the alumnus, and I believe a lot of them would have been on this call over time to talk to you people. And so again, let me just stop here. I talk a lot anyway. I talk a lot. So that's why they used to give me a market update to handle in at Bridge and wherever I go. Though I do other things, I can teach other things, but they felt this market update, you like talking. So go and be doing the market update. So yeah, what was I about to say? So any questions? Any questions for round up? Any question?
Right, I think I have a question, please.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Aside from following up this news, this market news, what actually helped you to deviate from, because this news agency, apart from them dropping the news, they actually drop what they feel, like what they think about it. They have their own way of analyzing it. Each news agency have their own way of analyzing it. So I want to ask, how were you able to deviate confidently from what the news think about it to what you actually think about it? And you're so let's say you trusted your own idea, you trusted your own thoughts concerning a particular news. How were you able to deviate towards that region?
Yeah. Okay. The funny thing is, the news agencies, they don't have ideas themselves. That's the funny thing. So they don't generate ideas themselves, or they don't they don't share perspective themselves. The funny thing is, they speak to analysts, they speak to industry people. Like today alone, I've granted like 2 interviews because that's my work. I've spoken to 2 business day reporters today alone, and they've asked me different questions. And some days probably via mails, I have to respond to Reuters or Bloomberg. via mails, and they'll ask us questions. What's our take? They get, and the same way they'll ask other people in other investment banking houses. So that's what they will now put together and make a news out of. They get, that's the start. I just needed to put that out that news agencies they don't really share perspective. They speak with analysts to get their perspective and they put the perspectives together. But yeah, I like the question, right? Because when I was starting out, so the question for me was, how do I, there's that hunger that means I want to get to that stage where I'll be able to analyze things and people will be like, wow, like, how do you know this thing? You get. But the funny thing, let me now tell you one secret that most of you need to take out of this meeting. The funny thing, when I was starting out, we used to do market updates. This kind of like a typical market update in SFC. We used to do it in our weekly meeting where we would go, they'll share, oh, what news did you follow this week? We'll not share the news, we'll not share perspective. I used to be like one of the people that used to lead the market update class. Do you get? So at SFC back then. So what do I do? Essentially, I follow the news and I read their perspective, gather their perspective together, and I make one informed perspective. And I share it to people, and people look at me like, wow, this boy is good, though. But they don't know that it's just the fact that I've read Reuters, I've read Bloomberg, I've read opinions from, you get, different agencies. Like, what's it called? This person, ProShare have their own perspective. Nairametrics have their own perspective. Bloomberg, Reuters, all of these people have their own perspective. All these things. So I've read all their perspective, then I've accumulated everything into one because it's in my head already. Then I share it. And I'm giving you different perspectives. I'm giving 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the point there is you don't build a perspective in that sense. Now, again, let me put it differently. You don't build a perspective. What I mean by you don't build a perspective in that sense is that you don't start out owning a perspective. What I do tell people is the best way to learn is to listen. The best way to learn. That's why you go to class and there's a teacher that teaches because you need to listen. So the best way to learn is to first listen. And the best way to learn perspective is to first read. Read other people's opinion. If you're doing, for those of you in part 4 or in your final year, you're doing project and this, they say you should do literature review. Go and gather the thoughts that other people have said about this thing. That's you gathering perspective of other people first. So the first way to building your own perspective is to first learn other people's perspective. Then as time goes on, now in the process of learning other people's perspective, you are catching new technical words, you are catching things that you never thought of. And the first thing again, now let me put this out. Probably that's the first thing I needed to have said. Once I read a news article, like when I read the headline and probably I read the major part of the news before I read perspective of people, what I try to do is to also think within myself. I may not say it out, but within myself, I'll think about the implication for Nigeria, implication for the economy. Like I've already formed a perspective in my own head. Then I'll now read the newspaper's perspective. Then I'll learn from it that, oh, this is what I did not see. Oh, this is what I did not see. Oh, this is what I did not catch. Do you get? Then I read another one again and I say, oh, even that one is saying is even wrong. Do you get? So that's how I was piecing my perspective together, piecing it together gradually, before I got to the point where I could now make my own perspective known. So building your own perspective is not the first step. It is more like the step is like, form your own perspective in your head, read other people's perspective, do as if you don't know. That's why it is very important that you try to assume zero knowledge. That's the best way to learn. Assume zero. That's why they'll tell you in school, assume zero knowledge. Just assume zero knowledge first. Because that's when you are receptive to learning. So assume zero knowledge, accept people's perspective, read wide, read from different sources, take their perspectives together, add it to your own. You have like 5 different perspectives now, plus your own. So that's the way to build perspective. That's why when I'm talking to agencies, I'm talking to news agencies, whenever they ask me one thing, I would share like 4 or 5 perspectives with them. Because that's what will create content for them. I'll say, if you look at it this way, this is the way you should look like, this is the implication. But if you look at it another way again, this is the way, that's the point you need to get to. And the funny thing is, there's no one answer to this thing. There's no one answer to this thing. everything economic that's no one answer. For those that did economics, you are dealing with human behavior. Human behavior is unpredictable, is unchartable. So you are just trying to make sense, share your own perspective, share your perspective, and make sure it is rational. Like it is like whatever premise you've built it on. For those of you that have done, these are why school. I said school is important. Back then we did philosophy, if you 101. They would teach us how to do an argument. You build premise. So make sure your premise is solid. Whatever premise you are building your argument on, make sure it is solid. So that means when you're reading other people's perspective, look at the premise that the perspective is laid on. Is the premise solid? Is it tight? If it's tight, take it and move on. So with time, I'm telling you, it took me like, say I started this process part 3, then I started work probably like 3 years roughly to be able to say, okay, yes, I have a perspective that I can share with the market. So roughly, it took me that personal time to read, to learn, to do all those things to get perspective. And it also helps in terms of perspective sharing, also helps in terms of this community that you're building in SFC. So when you come together to share perspective, there's no, and the thing in my typical class, like I was saying, in my typical English class or something, where I take market roundup, I would ask for your perspective, and never have I seen a wrong perspective. Never. Because there's always a perspective, because the perspective you are coming from is from your own angle. It might not be solid, but that's the angle you saw it from. But my own is to now guide you further and say, okay, let's move beyond that angle that you've seen. Let me now expose you to more angles that probably you've not seen. Are you there? So that's it. There's no one answer to this thing, but I feel, or my own take is, the first step or the major one is to spend time to read and learn from other people's perspective as you are sharpening yours. That's like the sharpener to your own perspective. Because as time goes on, before you know it, history used to repeat itself in this market. This is not the first recession Nigeria is going to undergo, right? Nigeria went into recession in what, 2016, for those that are aware. Are you guys there? Nigeria went into recession in 2016. Now we're about to enter another recession again. So, but for those that are already, that were in that market, or they were aware of what happened in 2016, they now have a premise or something to build their case on in 2020. That, okay, is it the same thing? Is it exactly the same thing that happened back then that happened now? Oh, COVID is a different thing. Oil price crashed in 2016 and it crashed now again. So they have that one in common. But COVID is unique for 2020. So that means 2020 has to be worse than 2016. You can see premise now. You're already building something in your head. So these are the ways to think about it. Are you there? So I think that's my answer to this.
All right, thank you very much. So Daniel Ekunda, you have a question. Quickly answer, please. We're running out of time. Ask your question. Daniel Ekunda.
Okay, all right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My question is about how to like how to sustain hunger, because you had to emphasize on it's not finance. So, but I feel having the knowledge of finance is like a basic need to really excel in whatever field anyone finds this. So at times it takes us to listen to talks like this. Then when you hear talks like this, you get really fired up from within and you want to learn everything. But after a while, the energy, the hunger dies. So what can be the fuel to sustain that hunger?
See, Ekunda, you just asked the most perfect question I've had in probably most of my engagements with people. Now, there is no energy that, what was it called? That, how will I put it now? That lasts forever in that sense. There's a need to rejig that energy most times. Do you get? Even power, for those that do sciences, they will say there's this thing that, what is it called? When they are transmitting power from the generating, what was it called? From the generating plants, there's a place where it would have to first go, then it will rejig itself and come back up again into the transmission line before it gets to the discos and the lights. But again, what I'm trying to say is that there is no energy that lasts forever. The energy at this point now, for those that are listening, probably they are listening and they're like, man, I need to go and start following the market. Or more, you wake up tomorrow and you see assignment and you do this thing, or you wake up tomorrow and you check a system and you're seeing one movie that you've not watched. Like some that, and before you know it, night has come and you just, I'll do it tomorrow. Before you know it, I'll do it tomorrow. And before you know it, the energy just dies. It's not more there anymore. Do you get? So yeah, it happens. Like it has happened to me. It has happened to the best of us. Do you get? So for most of us, it's because of work that we have to even, work is like the compulsory energy that you have to have. You have to do it now because that's what they are paying you for. So you can't say I don't have energy and I'm not doing anything today. You have to have energy by force. So, but in school, the energy, that is why the community, SFC, that is what it is supposed to do for you. SFC is the institution or is your source of energy already. People are your energy. So people around you are your energy. People in this community are your energy. So how can you build that energy for now? This is even me talking to the experts. How can you even build that energy for people that are on this platform? It is by sharing topical issues on your WhatsApp platform. I believe the world today, like when there's a group, there's always a WhatsApp platform anyway, and I want to believe you guys have one already. So on your WhatsApp platform, share topical issues, ask for opinions, let people share their opinions. When you wake up one morning, your energy is already dying. When you wake up, you're already seeing the movie. You just check your phone and you see, man, like 80 chats. You open the chat and you're seeing they are discussing bullish, bearish, and you're like, it was bullish, bearish. Pardon my way, anyway. You're checking all of this, and before you know it, you've scrolled down, and you've learned what bullish, bearish is. Like without even, and when you now learn what bullish, bearish, do you know one funny thing? Let me now tell you one funny thing that happens to me a lot. I don't know if it happens to everybody that is listening, but it happens to me a lot. Now, remember that there are some times, probably that word bullish, bearish, in your mind, you've never come across them before. In your mind, probably you've never come across them before. But after going through that WhatsApp chat, you just went through, probably you never even read the meaning, you just went through it. I'm telling you, there will be one day you'll be reading the news. It might even be that same day, and now reading the news, you now see bullish, bearish, and I'm like, man, this thing that we were even talking about on the WhatsApp page today. You get excited again. That energy falls up again because you just saw something that you just learned, or probably something that you're even reading for in school. Yeah, just reading about it, merger and acquisition, and something, and there's a case of merger and acquisition that is going on that you just stumble on the news somehow, and you're like, man, it rejigs your energy. That is why the WhatsApp platform is a good platform for that. And what we try to do over time also, I think, for most of the alumnus I've done, they also do come back. They also try to, sometimes, now there's Zoom and all the likes where we can actually do a proper class. Like before now, we would have to travel to, that has always been a barrier before now, because, it is even easier for most of us alumni to go and be teaching like students in their school, because all of us are in Lagos, so we can easily go to teach them. I teach UNILAG students. Ife teaches UNILAG students. Abiola Gumishola teaches UNILAG students. So it's easier to teach them than to teach OU students, because why? We would have to travel all the way to OU, to Ife, and there's work on Monday, so it's not easy. It's not convenient. But now there's even Zoom that you can leverage. There's WhatsApp, all of these things, and there's now technology that you can leverage to do all of these things. Do you get? So those are the things that you need to start looking on how to package together. But one of the major sources of energy, to be honest, is this community, is the WhatsApp, is the meetings that you'll be having. So that's why you wouldn't want to miss the meeting. Nobody wants to miss SFC meeting back in the days. No, I don't know about now, but I want to believe that is still the same culture. Nobody wants to miss the meeting, because you know that by the time you get there, it's fire for fire. Like that's always the way it is. We'll argue till night. They'll tell you to go home, you don't want to go home, because they are different. Everybody is sharing different things, and it's exciting because you will not even be hungry. We don't even share food in the meeting. There are so many meetings where you go to BOA, BOF, and all of those things. They will share food. They will share puff. They will share. I'm a member of, when I was in accounting, I was a member of BOFAM. We call it BOFAM, Bureau of Finance, Accountancy and Management, where the three we remember because we go there. Once it's time for food, we go and collect food. So when they share their pop and drink or punch, what they used to call punch back then, we go and collect it. We eat. You get. We're members of those bureaus. But again, what excited us, what was exciting about SSC was the practice, the things that were being taught on in that particular community was much more valuable than any other, or than the food that any other institution or agency will give us. Because we believe that that's what is going to stand us out when we get out of the school. So that was like the driver. That was the driver for us. That was the motivation. That was the drive. The fact that we know that we are going to be learning something new whenever we go. So that was what made people will pay. People pay. Like they were begging people to pay. I mean, especially people will pay like voluntarily. They even tell you that what they're charging them is too small. That was the point we got to. That people you are charging, the fees they are charging is small because the value they are seeing and they know they are getting is much more than what they paid for. So that's it. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. I think this should be the last question from
Yeah.
Shokwe. Good evening, Yinka. Please, can you recommend names of individuals and bodies we can follow on Twitter to get market updates and other financial information?
Again, man, like I said, this is not my typical class where I teach market roundup. I need to reiterate that because in a typical class, I spent a whole like 2 hours explaining. Like my first class in Edinburgh is always like, okay, let me explain like 2 hours. I spend it to explain how you do all of these things. Like in each of these things I've explained on this call. I would now tell you practically how to follow this person or this and this. But again, there are so many people. There are so many people to follow on Twitter. So many people. And I don't know how to do this. Okay, there's Ugo Dre. I don't know. But let me just explain the method. And I think that will help everyone. I don't want to mention any names. That's why I'm just skeptical. Now, this is what I used to do. This is how I built the network. Like the what's it called? The people I follow. Now, there's Nairametrics, right? Nairametrics is a news agency. Now, Nairametrics as a news agency, as a company that all they do all their life is what? News, economics. Now, that means whoever Nairametrics is following, for example, that person must have content. That's why they are following that person, right? So that's the only person that they're going to follow someone. I think Pressure follows me anyway, but I don't think Nairametrics follow me. So I've never really had engagement with Nairametrics. So the point is, they will only follow people they know that would give them content. They would treat something that is making sense. So how I started was to look at those news agencies, say Nairametrics, go and check following who they are following. They are following, not their followers now, who they are following. Then I'll go through the list, then I look at their bio. Like, when you are looking at the list, you look at the bio, then you look at, journalist in MENA, that's Middle East and North Africa, or journalist in South Africa, journalist in this. So I follow all of those people, follow them. And if I see another particular one, another day that I like, I click on that one again. That's like a very hard process anyway, but it's very rewarding at the end of the day. So I click on that one, check his own following too. That's how, so majorly I built my own platform or WhatsApp, Twitter platform by looking at those news agencies following. Who are they following? Then I try to follow them. And people that I like over time, mostly in Nigeria, there's Omotola Bimbola for economic students. You would know Omotola Bimbola is an alumnus of economics, and he was like my whole mentor when we were going out of school. So Omotola Bimbola is also an investment research associate or vice president anyway at Chapel Hill. So is like a very good content. He has like one of the best content when it comes to macros. Omotola Abimbola, that's his name. Anyway, you can check him out on Twitter. I can give you his own name for free. Then there's Ugo Dre, too, the owner of Nairametrics. That one thing about Ugo Dre that I need to mention before I go is that every Sunday by 10 p.m., Ugo Dre does what they call market roundup for the week. So on his Twitter. So Ugo Dre does market roundup for the week. That is, if you've not followed the market for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, for some reason, on Sunday by 10 p.m., you can always catch up with all that have happened during the week by just following Gotri and checking out the thread that I post every 10 p.m. on Sunday. So that thread just focuses on key news, not everything, you can't summarize everything in the thread. So it focuses on key news that have happened during the week and share some of his perspective to those news. So yeah, that's basically it.
All right, thank you very much, Shinka. We are so grateful to have you here. I think I think that
Pleasure.
will be all. That'll be all. Thank you very much.
Uh, Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay. All right, thank you. We have come to the end of this section, please. So, okay. All right. So we've come to this section. I don't Tofumi, is there any other thing, please? Tofumi here. Oh, sorry. Tofumi, please, are you here?
The other one, the other Tofumi is here.
Okay. All right. So we have come to the end of this section. So we can all leave now, please. You can leave now. Thanks very much for being available today.
Yeah, I think it's only the executives that are here now.
Okay.
Are
So
we saying
Tofumi, are
anything?
we still live
Hold
streaming?
on, hold on. I want to stop streaming.
All right.
So I don't know what's going on. I don't know how. I can't seem to stop streaming.
Don't me that yesterday. Did you off it, Sha?
Yes, I did.
Because
Okay.
yesterday
Kele,
when me
make
and
me the host. What did you say, Yinka?
yesterday when me and Kelly were doing meeting, like till we ended the meeting, it was showing live on YouTube.
No, it's Zoom. It's not
Okay, okay. Let
Yinka.
Kelly make.
Yinka,
Yeah.
please make me the host.
Okay.
Okay.
I've made yours.
I've seen it.